In the latest report just update 30 minutes ago, China maybe join the war when major phase of Russian offensive in Luhansk underway. Today, China's top diplomat has arrived in Moscow for talks on a possible peace plan for Ukraine, reports suggest. Wang Yi traveled to Russia yesterday for the meeting, according to the Russian-based Kommersant newspaper, but a diplomatic source told Reuters he is due to arrive in the country shortly. The main purpose of his trip is to increase the role of Beijing in the Ukrainian settlement, the news organization wrote. It adds that the talks are designed to accelerate the resolution of the crisis, which bears growing costs for Beijing in relations with the West. However, the news is likely to alarm the West, with concerns that China could provide military assistance to Russia continuing to grow. The U.S. has recently expressed its concern about Beijing's deepening relations with Moscow, saying it is following the issue very closely. Last week, at the annual Munich Security Conference, Wang accused the U.S. of violating international norms with hysterical behavior. He also reiterated a call for talks and suggested European countries think calmly about how to end the war, accusing some forces of not wanting negotiations to succeed, or for the war to end soon. In its latest intelligence update, the U.S. think tank added that Russian forces have probably secured small gains in the northern suburbs of Bakhmut and in its eastern outskirts. They've also reportedly continued their offensive operations along the western outskirts of Donetsk and around Vuhledar. However, Moscow is likely to still fall short of achieving operationally significant gains. A major phase of Russian offensive operations in Luhansk Oblast is underway, and Russia likely lacks sufficient uncommitted reserves to dramatically increase the scale or intensity of the offensive this winter, the ISW said. Russian forces almost certainly still have some reconstituted mechanized units in reserve, but the commitment of these limited reserves to the Luhansk Oblast front line is unlikely to change the course of the ongoing offensive dramatically. The ISW also noted that Russian tank losses have been enormous so far, and it's hindering the country's ability to reconstitute its tank units quickly. Recent intelligence estimates presented by Dutch open-source investigative organization Oryx found more than 1,000 distinct Russian tank losses and 500 captured tanks 2 weeks ago. The ISW said this suggests Russia has lost half of its pre-war tank fleet in the first year of the war. Now, the country's ground forces are feeling the repercussions, with the losses meaning it is lacking the kind of punch required to make and exploit operationally significant breakthroughs. In the territory of Luhansk, the Ukrainian army is making history against the Russian invaders whose military troops and equipment are running. Ukrainian army succeeded in difficulty. Yesterday, the Ukrainian army was able to complete a mission with great success in the city of Kreminna, which is located in the northern part of the Luhansk Oblast. The BMPT Terminator, which the Russian invaders referred to as an impossible and amazing weapon to be destroyed, was the goal of this operation. Since the commencement of the war, there has been a record of this significant vehicle being destroyed by an explosion for the very first. Let's take a look at this incident, which the Russian invaders did not anticipate in the least, but which resulted in significant casualties when it took place, as well as the developments in the areas of conflict. Russian army forced to withdraw. Tension escalated in Luhansk Oblast for the past few days. Russian invaders have launched many operations in an effort to conquer Luhansk Oblast. However, the Ukrainian army was able to thwart almost all of these assaults and successfully expelled the Russian occupants of the region using counterattack. They launched against them in a statement about the recent events in the region. The chief of the Luhansk Regional Military Administration, Sir Ihadai, said the following: the occupiers retreated because they were sufficiently dispersed and had to restock their soldiers. They even attempted to take a number of pieces of equipment with them but after hearing the positive response from our defense team, they decided to pull out as well. Ukrainian army fights like superheroes. It appears that the Russian army has been engaged in combat in the same regions for a considerable amount of time. The army of the Ukraine is to blame for this situation. Sworn warriors battle just like superhero. The formidable Russian army is suffering a loss of 1,000 soldiers for every 2 meters of advancement. The mod says that the 24th of February draws closer. Vladimir Putin's troops will be under increased pressure to make progress in their offensives. It is likely that Russia will claim that Bakhmut has been captured to align with the anniversary, regardless of the reality on the ground. It stated, Bakhmut has been a key battleground during the war, with Russia recently making small gains in nearby villages. The region is a gateway to other cities further west in the Donetsk region, and although Ukraine has been holding its own, Volodymyr Zelensky has warned his forces can't defend it at any price. In other news, Russia charges 680 Ukrainian officials with war crimes. Russia's chief public investigator said the Ukrainian officials were charged with the use of prohibited means and methods of warfare, TASS news agency reported. Those charged include 118 members of the armed forces and Defense Ministry, said Alexander Bastrikin, the head of the Investigative Committee of Russia. Mr. Bastrikin, who reports directly to President Vladimir Putin, said that the charges include the use of weapons against civilians. Ukrainian authorities have registered more than 70,000 Russian war crimes since the start of the conflict. Ukraine has also unveiled a number of criminal cases against members of Russia's forces, including against the boss of the Wagner mercenary group. Both Ukraine and Russia have denied targeting civilians in the year-long conflict.